Hey, my name is Jasmine, and here I tell crime stories whilst I crochet. If this is something you're interested in, please subscribe. Obviously, it can be quite hard to talk and crochet at the same time, so just bear with me. I'm sorry if I mispronounce anything, and all of this is done through my own personal research online. Feel free to do your own. Let's just jump straight into this case, guys. So, this case today focuses on a young couple who, at the point of the story in 2008, had already been dating for 2 years. Jullian Buchwald and Carolyn Watson. So Jullian was 22 when the story takes place, and Carolyn is 17. So initially I thought this was kind of weird because that means she was 15 and he was 20 when they started dating. But they did, however, meet through church. And they were pretty avid churchgoers. Like I said, they'd been dating for 2 years, but they was quite committed to obviously God, and so they decided to wait until marriage, which they agreed they would get married when Carolyn was 18 and had left school. So this wasn't long away, they would be married soon, all was well. So on this day in 2008, Jullian invited his girlfriend of 2 years, Carolyn, on a nice little romantic picnic date. Very nice of him. So they're on their way to the waterfall where they're having the picnic, and I think at this point Jullian notices some roadkill on the road. And I think it was quite normal for him to be quite interested in roadkill and seeing if he could salvage it and cook it and what have you. I don't know. So anyway, I think on the way there he didn't stop because obviously there was about to go on a romantic date, so they continued on to the waterfall, had their date, all was going well, but they did have a curfew. I think their parents were quite strict, and they both had a curfew. So anyway, they packed up their picnic and started heading back. And I think at this point, Jullian had kind of said that the roadkill had been moved a little bit from when he'd last drove past it, hours prior. Anyway, he wanted to go look for the roadkill or whatever to see if he could take it home. So he parked up the car, told Carolyn that he was away to go look at this roadkill. I'm guessing she's like, yeah, whatever, don't really care, go look at your roadkill. And she's chilling in the car. So Jullian goes and looks at this roadkill, and Carolyn is in the car. Now, minutes start to go by and Jullian still hasn't returned to the car. Carolyn's getting a little bit impatient because obviously they've got the curfew, she doesn't want to be late home. So she is about to get out of the car and look for him. And I think she looks in the rear view mirror. She's maybe got the door open at this point. I'm not really sure on the details for this, but either way, she's about to get out of the car and a man dressed all in black rushes at Carolyn. And obviously, she's quite shocked. She's unable to defend herself. And the guy, I believe he blindfolds her, ties her up, and he maybe even strips her at this point. Anyway, he puts her in the boot of a car and they're driving around. Obviously, Carolyn has no way of telling the time, but they was driving about for about 6 hours. And the whole time, Carolyn is just in the back of the car, terrified, has no idea what is going to happen to her. Anyway, we'll flash to Jullian's point of view. So Jullian gets out the car, is looking at the roadkill, and whilst he's looking at the roadkill, he claims that someone comes up behind him, knocks him out, and that's him, I guess, out of the story for the minute because he's unconscious. So go back to Carolyn. She's terrified in the car. They've been driving for about 6 hours. Eventually, they stop. The guy gets her out of the back of the car or the truck or whatever. I think she's still blindfolded at this point, and all she can hear is this guy digging, digging, digging. He is digging a hole for her, and she is absolutely terrified that this guy is about to, like, murder her. Anyway, the guy digs the hole and throws Carolyn in it. And then he just leaves. So Carolyn's stuck in this hole, tied up, blindfolded. I'm pretty sure she's half naked at this point, and she has no clue what's going on. Thankfully, her boyfriend, Jullian, appears. He is also half naked. He obviously helps his girlfriend out the hole, like unties her, XYZ. And he's telling her that the guy grabbed him first when he was looking at the roadkill, knocked him out unconscious. He was in the car. He's woke up in a different part of the woods, tied up, and he's managed to escape his ties. He's running in his direction, trying to escape, trying to find help, and he finds his girlfriend. So they're both like half naked, terrified, and they don't know where they're at. So they're both half naked, pretty terrified, and they're basically trying to escape these woods. So I think a few days go by, they've been walking through the woods, and I believe they did find some stuff, like, to help them survive. I believe they found, like, a backpack with some supplies, some water. So that was really lucky. That basically was the only thing that kept them alive. So for 6 days, these guys were trapped in this, I guess it was like the bush of Australia, like the wilderness of Australia. I don't really know the exact location, but there's like a secluded, dense part, and they were walking about for 6 whole days. And I guess halfway through, Jullian says to Carolyn, "Look, we're going to die, like, we're not going to make it out here. We should just get married here, like, in front of God, the two of us, and consummate our marriage, and that'll help us keep warm at night. We can be, like, intimate with each other, and that'll just, like, keep us going, basically." Give Carolyn her dues. She stuck her ground, and she was like, "No, like, I'm a bit preoccupied here. I'm trying to escape this woods. Like, sex is not really on my mind. I'm not really feeling it." All these things, as you would in the woods. On day 6, they finally escape the woods and are found by a farmer. Now, whilst all this has gone on with Carolyn and Jullian, back at home, obviously, they had at curfew that they was meant to be back for. So the parents obviously became quite worried about their children. And Jullian's parents actually found a note. And the note basically said something along the lines of, "We have the girl and the boy, call the police, XYZ, that they will be killed," basically. And then on the bottom of the letter, there was like these symbols, and obviously the mum, thank God, ignored the letter, and she went to the police. They thought a satanic cult had kidnapped the children. Days and days are going by, like, they've not heard anything from the satanic cult, they've not heard anything from the children. So for the parents and the police, like, they did believe that possibly a satanic cult was I believe they even signed like a name, and it was like a popular satanic cult at the time. I don't think that cult was actually in Australia, but I mean, it's always possible for cults to branch out, I guess. So Jullian and Carolyn are able to find their way out of this like dense area, and a farmer actually found them. They was like pretty dehydrated at this point, like quite burnt, because obviously it's Australia, so like through the day it's really hot temperatures, and then at night it's quite cold. So obviously police questioned them when they were able. Carolyn told them the story about obviously pulling over in the car and the masked man attacking her, driving her 6 hours away, and releasing her. Well, left her tied up and blindfolded, and her boyfriend obviously found her, rescued her from that hole, and they were basically walking about for 6 days trying to escape. That was Carolyn's story to the police. And very similar, Jullian told the police that he was investigating the dead animal on the side of the road, and someone came up behind him, hit him in the head, and he was unconscious. Woke up in the woods, found his girlfriend, and like Carolyn said, we're walking about for about 6 days trying to escape this dense area. So the police are like, okay, both the stories are quite similar. Okay, and they didn't have much evidence at this point. But then I believe like some of the stuff that Carolyn and Jullian had found in the woods, like the backpack that like had the stuff to help them survive, they thought that had been left by the satanic cult. But the police actually found out it belonged to Jullian. So police brought Jullian back in for like a second round of questioning, basically, and they didn't have to put much pressure on Jullian before he basically broke and told the police that he had staged this entire kidnapping of his girlfriend, and he had done this so that they could have sex. Jullian was so desperate to get laid, he literally thought the worst plot in the entire world. Like, did he really think that scared and terrified for our life in this area, this remote area, he was really going to get lucky? Like, mind blown. Absolutely mind blown that he thought this plan would work. So obviously Jullian was arrested, but then I believe he was released on bail. I believe he fled the country and tried to pass himself off as like an Indian man. He dyed his hair dark and he dyed his eyebrows, and he was eventually caught and arrested, and served, I believe it was like 9 years in jail, or he was sentenced to 9 years in jail. And now in 2023, he is a free man. He's just out there living life. I hope Carolyn is okay to this day. I mean, that must have been pretty traumatic. 6 days to be walking about day and night, like terrified for your life. The 6 hour drive, like he just drove her, I guess, like basically in circles. I don't think they was actually 6 hours from their home. And he basically did all this just so he could have sex. And I mean, she was 17. It was a couple of months away from graduation. They said they was going to get married once she was 18. He'd already waited 2 years. It's just mind-baffling that he went to this extreme just to have sex. weeks. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that like short case. I just thought it was pretty crazy that all of this happened, and yeah, just stay safe, guys, and don't kidnap your girlfriends, basically. I'll see you on the next one, and you can watch me crochet whilst I tell a story.